So, welcome to the Migraine Renaissance podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dylan Wells, and today we have a really interesting topic that I think a lot of people will really resonate with. We're going to be covering stress and how this interacts with the migraine process, but really, how does this have interconnection with pretty much every aspect of our life, and what is it really? What is stress? Is it just an emotional burden, or is it when times get tough, or is there something else going on too? So we're going to break that down. And to do that, we have a very special guest, Ashley Brown with Move Talk Zen. She is a psychotherapist and does some running coaching as well, but I won't take the stage too long. I want to hear your way of putting it, and you can describe a little bit about your backstory and what got you into that space.
Okay. Let's see. So, yes, psychotherapist and a running coach, and I combine them in different ways.
Awesome.
So while I still do the separate aspects of them, my niche is definitely how I can connect movement and psychotherapy modalities, theories, etc., at the same time to really truly utilize that superpower, because it's a superpower.
Yeah.
Right? Once it's all connected together, and we're engaging the mind and the body at the same time, how that can have a positive impact on overall well-being.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into more of those mechanisms too as we go, and I think it's going to be really fascinating for a lot of people, because it is amazing how movement can really help a lot with both our just physical health, but also how our brains function and the ways that key areas are able to communicate with each other. So, but yeah, maybe tell us a little bit more about like where you're from, where you went to school, all that stuff.
Yeah. That's like cool. Okay, so originally I am from the tri-states, right? So New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Went to get my bachelor's in clinical psychology from Kutztown University.
Okay.
Probably not a whole lot of people know about that one. Very, very just in the woods of Pennsylvania, right? But that's where I really kind of started my passion for psychology. I originally started as art ed. And cool. While definitely still utilize, that as a hobby, and I'm getting creative in different ways with my clients. But once I took my first psych class, the day was over. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a therapist, and also something like a different kind of therapist. But didn't quite know what exactly I wanted to do just yet. But Pennsylvania, I will say, while not a whole lot going on, it provided beautiful, beautiful trails, right? Yeah. Where I really, got in touch with running. Okay. And I've been a runner
ever since?
Yeah. Ever since I could figure out, like, I can do these things with my legs. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Nice.
And go
it's a
fast
lifelong endeavor.
And do things. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also where I did like track and field and did the sports, did field hockey there too. It's a lot of running. But
remind me what events you did in track, because I also was a decathlete.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was a sprinter, right? And and so I did the 100, the 200. Yeah. I delved into the 400, right?
Oof, yeah.
But I was
Me too. It's a spicy race.
Yes, it is.
Very
spicy. But I liked going fast, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a sprinter.
Yeah.
But I just loved it, and so as outside of that, as an athlete, I absolutely would utilize it as my therapy.
Yeah,
right?
like a coping mechanism for the hard times. Yeah.
Yes, back then, and back then I didn't know it was dissociation, but but it made me feel capable and confident in a lot of different ways.
Definitely.
So as I was kind of going through my bachelor's and I was running and doing all the things at the same time, I was like, what if I could like put these things together?
Yeah.
Is that a thing? do people do that? Do therapists do that? I don't know. I don't think so. But as I was going to get my master's, fast forward in the middle of that, got out of the north, came down south to Charlotte, North Carolina, and was like, I'm going to go here somewhere for my master's. Didn't turn out that way. I ended up doing Northwestern University.
Turn around and head back.
But the program at Northwestern was absolutely amazing because it was very immersive. The professors there were eclectic, right? And they definitely provided the space or opportunity to delve outside of the box, if you will, right? Like get creative with what kind of therapy that you want to be doing. And you know, we need more research out there. So like start that. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what I can do. And I started looking up, right, all these different articles, reading a whole bunch of different books, right? Seeing all the research that was out there, outdated, but there, right? For running therapy and how to combine that and just the benefits of incorporating movement with psychotherapy modalities, and just how effective that is in decreasing symptoms of anxiety, depression. Those specifically is what's researched the most, but then I was like, okay, but what about trauma? And what about, you know, just a different relationship with your body too, and how to connect the mind and the body in different ways. And so, you know, as I continued and I became a baby therapist, right? I got my license. I was like, okay, now I get to do the thing. I just grew in that. And in that time, you know, Move Talk Zen. I decided to name it Move Talk Zen versus like Run Talk Zen because I knew that I'm going to want more kinds of movements somewhere in there at some point. And started doing it and seeing real results with my clients and me running side by side with them while incorporating mindfulness, psychotherapy all at once.
No, that's great. Yeah, and actually that's how I initially ran into you on Instagram. The move part stood out and I was like, hang on a sec.
What you do?
Looked into it and I was like, oh, okay, this is like right up my alley, like movement for health and for especially, like I love the take on movement for psychological well-being and just kind of incorporating that into some of your meditative practices essentially. And so had a couple conversations and I realized we were a great match. So I'm excited to dive in a little bit more. And you know, you touched on learning about the effect of movement on stress and depression and anxiety and all that. Maybe you can give us a little teaser. We'll get into it more later, but like what are your thoughts on like how that kind of works?
How the running therapy works?
Yeah.
Well, for a lot of the research that I was seeing in the beginning, right, it really was kind of focused on what happens physiologically, chemically within our body, within our brain, that, you know, elicits endorphins, right, dopamine, all these different chemicals that make us feel good, right, when we run, and how to take that and go a step further in incorporating then psychotherapy modalities that, you know, help to kind of fill that gap of like, okay, well, we can recognize that by moving our body in this way, it makes us feel good. Right. And yet I still have all these, you know, emotions and sensations and anxiety and stress, right? It's still happening. And that's where the psychotherapy kind of comes into play, where we create the tools to, one, recognize the similarities between exercise and physiological symptoms of psychological disorders, right? Totally. And how they look the same, feel the same. And if that's the case, how we can absolutely, you know, transfer that confidence, that capability, that achievements, you know, all those good feelings to when we also have anxiety or depression and all that. So
it sounds like the the kind of psychological processing that's going on is sort of like using this as a window to kind of lean into some maybe new thought processing and starting to take ownership of how we feel and how we can use exercise as a way to break through, but not just as a way to escape. You kind of mentioned earlier your dissociation.
Yep.
I think that's key because you can sort of use a lot of healthy things as sort of escaping and avoiding, but you can also do a lot of stuff that's really healthy by helping to like focus in a little bit and give yourself a chance to kind of break through with movement or with other practices, and then do something with it. And I love that concept of using it as a tool, but not as this thing to escape. Because a lot of people are like, I just go to the gym so I can like let my rage out, and it's like, there's something to that.
Yes,
It feels good. I love that. But like, let's maybe also incorporate a bit of mindfulness and starting to understand our own like thought processes and how that's kind of shaping our reality. And so you can break it up, but then let's do something. So I love that.
It's absolutely being intentional, right?
Yeah.
But I also say a lot like how we can utilize exercise to reflect versus deflect.
Yes, exactly.
and how powerful that can be from just a whole mind-body perspective and well-being and living.
Totally. Yeah, and I think, we'll get into some of this later, but basically, exercise does magical stuff in our brains.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it creates such a fertile ground for growth. And so, we'll talk about that in a little while, but I think that's actually a pretty good segue into, let's start to unpack what we're addressing with this. We're trying to get at stress, and stress kind of is, I think, an umbrella thing. There's a lot of stuff within stress that we can talk about, like the physiological experience or the more lived experience. And we can talk about how maybe stress is, we think of it one way, but it's really actually super similar to feeling excited and to feeling motivated to grow and to change. And so maybe we can first start with how do we define stress, and maybe how do you define it with your clients and in your practice?
I get a lot of folks coming in for stress.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the time it's really this concept, but not necessarily like a knowing of exactly just what it is. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's happening, right? What triggers it? All these different things. And that's why they come in here, right? To gain more information about like, okay, what is this thing? And sometimes it's like, okay, what is this thing and how do I fix it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
give me the quick fixes.
Yeah. Like, well, we're going to slow down.
Yeah.
Because there's temporary fixes, and that's what dissociation is, right?
Yeah.
But absolutely, how can we, get to know what stress is for you, you the client, right? Individually, how you experience it, how it shows up for you, to then curate like a plan, right, of what's going to work for you when it comes to managing stress, right? Because we still need parts of that fight or flight system still, right?
Yeah.
We need...
That's essential.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need that to, walk across the street and not get hit by a car.
Yeah.
Or what have you. But how we can absolutely recognize the difference between like stress when it's dysfunctional and it's disrupting a whole bunch of, aspects in your life.
Yeah.
To like everyday stress that feels manageable, that feels like, you're capable of handling whatever comes to mind. But usually, right, when a client comes in and they're like, I don't know, I'll ask them first, what do they experience physiologically that kind of encompasses this this feeling of stress.
Yeah.
Right. And usually when I focus on the body first, right, it then clicks, right, of like, oh, these things are happening to me every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to guide, like I'm like, okay, let me meet you where you're at and give a few and you tell me yes or no.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, do you get, hot and clammy, right? Do we start thinking really fast? Illumination, right?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Just
When I'm stressed, my mind's all a mile a minute.
boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, right? And is that hard to reel in,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what makes it the ruminating part.
Yeah.
But do we feel like we're on edge, and what that could feel like, right? So we have to get up, we have to move, we have to do something.
That feeling
An
of
urgency.
yeah, like you need to take action, but like what do I do? That kind of like
Yes.
decision paralysis plus that feeling of
Yes.
needing to do something. Yeah.
Yes, which
That
can then
resonates
trigger
with me.
more.
Yeah.
It can create more stress,
Totally.
right? Because of that paralysis of like, we're feeling the sensation
Mm-hmm.
of needing to do something, but we don't know what to do, so we're
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah.
And then we just feel that overwhelm,
Yeah.
right?
I know I feel like some of my stress I feel like sort of in my abdomen or my stomach, and I'll often feel it in my hands or
Yeah.
like in my legs some.
Mhm.
And especially like acutely, but then
Mhm.
it's interesting, you can sort of start to be like, when it's been there for a long time, you're like, oh, I'm actually like feeling that still, and it's like that's just been boiling for a little while in there.
Yeah.
You got to do
Yeah.
something to shake it out a little bit. And
But yeah, absolutely, exactly how you just explained it too, right? That is I think what, like, by asking that question, what do you experience physiologically,
Mhm.
helps fill that gap, right?
Yeah.
Of like, where do you feel the anxiety then? Like, where does it show up in your body?
Mhm.
And I hear a lot of, in the gut or in the chest. Oops, sorry. In the chest. I've actually heard the hands, right?
Mhm.
Because it's that zinginess,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And I'll hear words like that, like zingy, right?
Yeah.
Or like I feel like I'm buzzing,
Yeah.
right, with energy,
Mhm.
but it feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
Once we kind of gather that information,
Yeah.
and they can connect, right, the physical to the emotional experience,
Yeah.
then we can really start going into other details. Like, okay, when do you experience these physiological symptoms the most?
Yeah.
Is it when you're at work? Is it right before bed? Is
Yeah, that's a
it when
big
you
one.
see your mom? Or
Oh,
like,
yeah.
all
Yeah.
these different things.
Yeah.
That we can then kind of look at, the details to then curate that plan that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
Of like, okay,
What
So
do
we
we
know.
need to start processing more? And yeah, you mentioned in some of our other talks about like, are you maybe pre-contemplative with understanding that some change needs to be made, and you kind of phrased it as they need to be an investigator. They need
Yes,
to be
yep.
starting to explore like, when is this coming up in our lives? Like trying to like become a master of your own life, and recognize like, oh, this is happening like every time that I get in the car or something like that. Maybe you were in a car accident and you have this still like kind of learned stress response from that or something like that. And a lot of my clients who deal with migraines, there's car accidents are one of the big sources of neck injury, and that can lead into migraines, especially if it comes with a head injury. And so there is a big subset of people who are like, when you get in the car, it's just this like really anxious, intense thing, and but you may not even realize it because it's so every day. You just
Yes.
feel it all the time, and yeah, I think it's great to start to be like, oh no, I see it doing this. I like there's this moment where I feel it, and you can then use some of these practices that we'll get into more of, like how, when you recognize that, do you respond, and how do you create new ways of living that are not going to propagate this continual maladaptive process.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good intro, I think, and I think it helps to let's maybe, I brought some notes with me. So, like, how is it defined in the literature? Because I think it helps to recognize what the people who are at the forefront of understanding science, the science behind stress, and then how we can kind of steal it and use it in our lives.
Yep.
So one is defined as a real or anticipated disruption of homeostasis or an anticipated threat to well-being. So recognizing that it's both perception, but it's also, we're addressing challenges or physical or psychological barriers. And so there is a beneficial side of stress. Like it's helping us to dial in to fix something. And that's like, I think in our ancestry, before we had the modern day, everything is like just this low grade stress trigger. We were good about quickly responding to and addressing threats and stuff like that. But I think his name was Hans Selye, I think is his name. He was kind of like the pioneer of stress science, and he defined it as the state manifested by a specific syndrome which consists of all the non-specifically induced changes within a biological system. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
When I read that, I was like, that just doesn't necessarily feel super applicable. But it basically boils down to stress kind of develops in 3 stages, and I think we've kind of moved past this in the literature, but it helps to understand where we came from, to understand where we're going. So it's
Absolutely.
there's the first stage would be the alarm stage, and then there's resistance stage, and then there's the fatigue stage, or the exhaustion stage is another way to put it. But it's where the stress response starts. We're like, oh, this isn't good, and then we kind of just like meld into it, and then maybe it passes. But I think we're starting to recognize that it's a little bit more nuanced than that, where there's a little bit more complexity. And why does sometimes a stressor stick around? Because humans in reality are extremely resilient and adaptable creatures.
Right.
But people who experience a really traumatic life event, 80% of people are going to move on with getting back to their regular baseline. But a lot of people have a difficult time getting back into that. And so I think it's helpful to recognize that there are other ways that this happens. And some people have a genetic predisposition to some things. Others may have more of a learned adaptive traits from their childhood or from experiences with, learning from their parents and stuff like that. But I think another way to look at the definition too is just a state of homeostasis being challenged. And homeostasis is basically just our ability to regulate our internal environment. It's like our body temperature. It's our ability to maintain our blood pressure and other states of just general arousal, and clearing out byproducts of our metabolism that are kind of toxic to us, or clearing out other things, but also bringing in healthy stuff, and finding that balance all the time. And our body's always regulating, and it's sensing and then adjusting. And so sometimes this can go awry, and we'll get into that a little bit. But I think recognizing that there are physical or physiological stimuli that are threatening this homeostasis. And sometimes those stimuli are actually a good thing. Like, we need stressors in our lives to grow and to change and to thrive. And basically it's like, if we can break it down into, like, it's referred to as eustress, or like the beneficial stress, where it's something that is causing us to maybe engage more readily into something, or like maybe we need to cross the street more quickly. It's pushing us to take a beneficial action.
Yeah.
Or it's helping us to adapt in some way. Like if we think about weightlifting, our muscles go through a challenge. They're like, whoa, that's a lot. They have to increase the resilience, lay down new muscle protein, adapt in other ways, like build new mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cells, and but other things too. So, but then this can kind of, if stressors become a little bit too significant, we can kind of get into distress. And I think that's where we all really want to learn a bit more. We want to, how do we manage distress, and what even is that? Like, why is distress different than eustress, and why is it different than just excitement and stuff like that? And do you have any thoughts on that you want to share?
Oh, yeah, so many. No, I mean, even just piggybacking off of the distress and eustress, I think what really, really kind of pinpoints, or how I guess explain the difference between distress and maybe that stress that you were talking about that's beneficial, right? The challenge, is distress is when daily functioning tasks, right, are really, really difficult to the point where we're either unable to complete them or even initiate them, right? Because our homeostasis is out of whack, right? And so many different areas.
That's good. So it's impairing our normal
Yes.
engagement in our relationships or life or work, whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah. And even those are like the I would say the next tier of daily living. Sometimes it's also we're so distressed that we can't move, right? We are literally in that freeze mode of I don't know what to do here, and so we don't do anything. We procrastinate, right? Or we dissociate, right? Any of those pieces where we can't then go brush our teeth, right? We can't, we forget to eat, right? We forget to take care of ourselves at the basic level. And that's also the daily functioning aspect. When those are disrupted, that is when we can recognize the difference between distress and like the challenging stress that we feel we can manage.
And that is particularly salient for people with migraines too, because like a lot of times the migraine process itself can be very dysregulating, and it can be like, you know, fighting an uphill battle just to get out of bed in the morning. But that kind of feeling of paralysis is well documented in the literature too, of people struggling with migraines often become less physically active and engaged in their lives, even if exercise isn't a trigger, although it is, you know, a trigger for a lot of people. Exercise can be a great way to help people kind of break out of this stagnation, because once you recognize it helps with the process and it helps with just kind of reconnecting to taking action. I think it's a nice thing to feel our way through a little bit. Sometimes you have to have some tact with how you approach exercise at first, because it can be triggering for about 30% of people. Is you know, so it's difficult, but I think it's also good to recognize that some of these things that we're experiencing with migraines, like the labor it takes to do daily activities, can also be manifestations of stress and anxiety and depression, and those things happen in the same people a lot. They're called comorbid, or they tend to overlap in a lot of the people that we see in you know, the research that we do on this. And so I think it's great to identify that those things are so interconnected. But there's another term I think that can help to kind of shed some light on this, because it kind of moves past just the terms of stress, and it actually gets into what's called allostatic load, or allostasis is our ability to maintain. It's similar to homeostasis, but it's thinking of all of the stressors in our lives as sort of adding to our stress bucket, or what are we able to manage. And so allostatic load can be you know, beneficial when we're challenged in our work and in our, you know, exercise and in some other key areas. I think it helps us to grow and be better at what we love, or maybe be, you know, more tuned in listening to people, because you have meetings with 10 clients in a day and you're like, that was a lot, but you are now better at doing that stuff. But then we can also run into allostatic overload, and that's where something like, let's say you didn't sleep very well at night, and that is a stressor, but then you have another stressor of you always go to the gym no matter what, you always do high intensity training, and that is a stressor too. While it's usually a beneficial stressor and it can help a lot, if you're, you know, packing everything you possibly can into your day, you're not managing more of like the psychological stress components, those things can come together and lead to all sorts of different kind of health concerns. So we actually have this questionnaire that I took for the first time while I was doing my residency training. It's called the the Holmes-Rahe Life Stress Inventory, and I think it's a pretty cool test. It looks at different life stressors and your likelihood of developing a serious health complication in the near future. And so you basically go through each of these. I think it's like 50 items. It ranges from like a loved one dying to your home being what's it called? From your home being taken away by the bank.
Yeah, there you go. Foreclosure.
Foreclosure. Yeah, we got there.
There we go.
To, you know, something like you had a hard day at work and stuff like that, and it's all like, I think roughly within the last year. And if you score at certain thresholds, you're more likely to experience a negative health outcome in the near future. I know, for example, when I was doing my residency, my score was through the roof, and I could feel it at times. Like I would definitely have more daily just general fatigue. I was not getting enough sleep. I was definitely working quite a lot, very, very intense hours. I was renovating my house, just bought a new house and some other things going on, but that ended up leading me to just like kind of this general weight. And it took me a while to unravel that a little bit. And, but recognizing it by doing a self-assessment, recognizing that these things add up and not everyone is going to have a serious health outcome challenge from having all these stressors. Everyone's a little different, and it's like an 80% likelihood if you're in the upper tier of this stress inventory, but it ends up leading to a higher risk of developing those things. And that gets us to maybe there's some differences in individuals, and maybe do you want to maybe touch on that, like how some people are different and they just bounce back from stress, and other people may need some other strategies to help support them through that recovery process.
The individual differences, I mean, are vast, right? Depending on so many different factors, like you mentioned earlier, too, what their upbringing was like. Yeah. What skills did they gain for emotion regulation, or even just for emotion identification, right? To even be able to recognize what, stress feels like, or was it nurtured, right? When it came up as a kid, or was it not, and was it shamed, or was it, were you yelled at, right? Or all these different things that can come into play of how it affects you later in life, how you manage various tasks, right? Now, I call the plate spinning, right? When you've got like 10, 20 million
one bounce on your nose, one on your toes.
Trying so hard. And you end up reaching, right, a burnt and crispy level. You burnt and crispy. Yeah. And how you can, or the possibility to prevent burnt and crispy, right, is how much you're already starting out with, how many coping skills you are aware of. Are we even aware that we could cope? Yeah. Because another aspect too that I absolutely want to take into account is cultural differences as well. Oh yeah. Right? Like within
what's
different
even available to you as an option. Yeah.
Like there may be absolutely no access, or just mental health stuff, right? Taboo, we ain't gonna talk about it. You just have to go.
Socioeconomic status too is a really big one.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how you gain access to like that knowledge, right? Of learning about yourself in such a way where we can have the awareness of just how much are we doing and how much is this impacting my life in so many different ways, right? Are all of these plates that I'm trying to spin, right? Is this what's making me exhausted every day? Yeah. That why I'm late to work? Yeah. Right? More often than not, because I'm not getting good sleep. Yeah. Because I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that, and
you got to find that motivation in the morning when you're dragging yourself out of bed. Got to get hyped up. Okay, we can do this.
And it's like, do we even have that extra fuel? Yeah. By the time that you're burnt and crispy, that's where we end up seeing the distress, right? Yeah. The malfunction, essentially, and depression, significant anxiety. Yeah. And so absolutely, there's so many factors that could help deter burnout, right? Or max stress.
Yeah. And actually, maybe this seems like a great opportunity to bring up this thing I was recently reading. It's the idea of agency and having control over your life and your like your schedule and stuff like that, and being able to say like, I have control. I know that if I choose to do this, I'm gonna be able to do it on my own. Or like, do I have to go to work no matter what? Do I have 3 jobs that all require me to be functioning at a high level? Is my family going to be there in case this doesn't work out to support me? Or like all of those things, the ability to have that flexibility and to control your schedule a little bit or to control those things, they can play a big role in there. Or even just
Absolutely.
identifying that there are things you can do to help, like, and maybe we can talk some more about what is something that somebody might learn that might be a maladaptive coping mechanism, and or what are some maybe more beneficial coping mechanisms, and how do those look?
Let's see, what route do I want to go with this? Because it's a lot, right? And definitely different theories, right, that say different things or what have you. But so just a little caveat, like I am very psychodynamic focused when it comes to my theory. And what that means is I like to really kind of look in the past, right, to be able to kind of see what golden nuggets, we have over there that have impacted the present, so then we can figure out where to go in the future. And within those kinds of theories, it's absolutely a focus then on those individual differences on how to create that plan that I talked about before for coping strategies. But let's say with those examples of childhood, right? If we did not necessarily have access to, or caregiving at that point was either just neglectful or not helpful. Where we didn't have that base to learn from when those very crucial formative years, like from birth to 6, where we really, really gain concepts of the world and how we fit in it.
Stability and like, am I going to be protected? And
safety.
Yeah, safety is a big one.
Yes. We end up learning how to survive. Right. If a lot of those things are lacking, right? And so the survival aspect is where we can absolutely see the maladaptive coping strategies later on in life.
So we learn to survive, not necessarily to thrive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where, here it's the guidance to thrive. Right. That is an option. It absolutely is. And let's, try some different things so we can really see it and believe in it, right? But it's a lot of rewiring, especially if it's coming from childhood, right? In that space. But let me see, a couple examples of maladaptive, strategies to survive or temporary fixes, right? Outside of dissociation, because a lot of that is like our brain's like fail safe. Right, it's just like
I'm not paying attention to this
checking
anymore.
out. That can very much feel like out of our control in a lot of different ways. But other ones that involve more choice, right, is we can have, let's say, managers and firefighters. This is terminologies from a specific modality called IFS, Internal Family Systems. But it's good language to utilize with a lot of folks because they can they already have emotional attachments to some of these words, right? So like when we hear a manager, right, we think of those folks who are like, okay, I'm really, really stressed out, right? It must be because I didn't organize well. Right? Or it must be because I'm not doing A, B, C, and D, right? I have that perfectionism. Born. But so managers can be like organizing to the point where you have a whole bunch of lists, but nothing's getting done. Right? Or maybe some of it's getting done, and then you're getting more frustrated or stressed, and it turns into distress, right? Firefighters are more on the like reactive. They are the first responders when that stress response comes up, right? So when that stress response does come up, then it's like, I don't want to feel this at all. Because it feels like too much. It feels flooding. So cue social media. I'm going to doom scroll for all of a sudden 3 hours, right? So there's that, or we'll also see addictions here, right? Where
an escape, they just quench
escapism.
That makes so much sense.
It's like, I don't want to feel it, so I'm going to numb it somehow or distract. So you got like these couple, maladaptive ones, but they're just that, they're temporary fixes. And a lot of that is based from that survival narrative, right, that our nervous system has learned through time of like, well, this gets me by, right, for a little while. So once we're rewiring, right, and we're trying to figure out longer lasting ones, a lot of the time after we kind of focus on, clients, after we focus on identifying the stressors, physiological symptoms, what in their environment contributes to it, right, or what time of day, et cetera, we'll start creating a plan that is aligned with what's important to them. Right? Because when we're distressed, we can lose sight of that.
Definitely.
Right? And
get the blinders on, it's tunnel vision, just get through this thing.
Yes, and it's still surviving, right? So it's really, really getting back in touch with themselves internally, right? But holistically of like, what's important to you emotionally, physically, relationally, all these different pieces. What do they value? And figure out like from those values, okay, so what brings you calm? Right? What brings you clarity, connection, creativity, all those different pieces. And once we kind of figure those things out, let's say if one person is like, well, I really value movement, right? It makes me feel calm. Cool. Okay. Awesome. That's my jam. Let's see how we can utilize that value, but make it intentional, right? Make it to tune into yourself and again, reflect versus deflect. Let's change the dynamic, change the relationship. And how we can do that is through all the meditations that I literally run them through, right? To identify physiological symptoms that is happening while we're running and how it can relate to physiological symptoms when they're anxious. Right.
Totally. So. I love that because we're using tools that have multiple benefits, and it's like, movement is a great example of like, it helps with your nervous system regulation, but it also helps with your cardiovascular function, and it, with migraines, it helps both prevent them from happening, and it helps to reduce their severity. And so like movement is an awesome one because it's great for kind of breaking through the cloud of dysregulation that can come with stress. And but I think meditation is like such another huge one because we can choose the type of meditation based on what we want to get out of it. Like we can use our breath to calm and get more into a meditative state of a more parasympathetic state, maybe, where like, let's say we're doing a 4-7-8 breathing pattern. That's a great way to kind of just get everything brought down. And then we can maybe attend more to like improving our, attention to like maybe a task we need to be focusing on, or I also love the physiologic side. I know you've done the physiologic side.
That's my favorite.
Maybe can you run me through it so people can understand a little bit?
Okay, yay. It's so funny because I posted that video the other day that I at least do one physiological sigh in every conversation that I have. But just I guess to give a little snippet, right, of what is happening physiologically. This is how I usually start, right? When I'm like, okay, have you ever heard of the physiological side? No. Right. So I was like, okay, so let me give a backstory. So the physiological sigh, why it works, right, to decrease stress or just get us to that state where we can feel more clear to tackle something else, right? Is it is a part of that vagal toning, right? When we breathe with our diaphragm in a certain way, right, our diaphragm can actually just poke that nerve, right? The vagus nerve that is associated with activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And having us have, we are then in that calm state or more in that calm state because we're sending those signals to our brain that like, okay, we're safe. We're good, right? We just need a little time to focus on that and remember. Right. So
maybe I can really quickly explain like just anatomically. So the vagus nerve actually it comes directly from your brain. It's one of the cranial nerves from your brain stem. It comes down the front of the neck. It goes down underneath your collarbones. It goes around, wraps around your heart, and actually is important for regulating your heart rate. but then it goes down through your diaphragm and it goes and innervates all of your organs and is responsible for digestion and regulating a lot of our basic functions. And because it's always an ebb and flow between parasympathetic and sympathetic. Sympathetic being like the fight, flight, or freeze. The parasympathetic is like rest and digest. We're doing all right. We're just chilling.
Yes. Where we want to be.
So yeah, then this breathing pattern helps to stimulate that vagus nerve a little bit, and it signals to us to kind of calm down. It sounds like.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And what's different about this kind of breathing is because there's 2 inhales, right? Mm-hmm. And with the extra sip of an inhale, right, it expands the diaphragm in such a way where it's able to tap right that vagus nerve, right, and you know, versus just belly breathing, which is still good, right, just but this one gives that little extra boost, right. So what that ends up looking like, and a lot of the time I tell folks to like put one hand on your belly, put one hand on your chest, so you can recognize whether or not you're truly breathing into your diaphragm or if you're still doing chest breathing. Yeah. So just like a cue, right? But you end up breathing into your belly, take a nice, like, full, deep breath in, take that extra sip, and then leads to a longer exhale. Yeah. And even just that, like, right? It's just like, just that one.
Yeah. And you can try it at home, too. It's a great way to just kind of bring everything down. And it's such like it's like a short circuit for the chaos that goes on in our lives sometimes. It feels so good. I often do like 5 in a row or something like that, or I'll even do it for like 5 minutes sometimes if I really just want to go deep and like decompress a little bit, maybe before a deeper meditative state. Like if I'm like really scattered and my mind won't kind of just calm down, I might start there and just allow things to settle down so that I can focus on maybe an intention I set with the meditation. And it sounds kind of similar to like the intentions you set with your running meditation stuff. So I even like, I'll use physiologic sight in the middle of my day though. Like I'm driving and I'm like, I recognize like, maybe I like check a text or something. I'm like, no, okay, I gotta just like settle down. I'll just go like, and then I'll just let it go. Maybe do a couple of those, work it into the day, and suddenly you got a little bit better regulation. You're kind of ready to just come at life a little bit more level-headed.
Yes, you can, and that is the beauty of that one. That's why I love it so much, because I call it like the pocket coping mechanism. Yeah. Right. You can utilize that wherever, whenever. And I would imagine, absolutely in the car a lot. Yeah. I do that a lot. In Charlotte, yes.
Instead of yelling, or maybe you start yelling.
It's like, wait, let me feel it in. Regulate.
But it's a good example too of how certain coping mechanisms could be avoidant. Like if you didn't do anything with that and you didn't try to like be more present in your life afterwards, it's kind of like a neutral one where you're like, you're a little more regulated, but it's not necessarily going to create the change if you don't then use that and try to show up a little bit more present in your life, or maybe do the meditation that really is like, what is going on? Like I need to think about this a little bit more. But same thing with like exercise. Like if we're not using that, like, wow, I feel so much better now. Like let me just try to lean into being more immersed in my life and stuff like that. I think it's a great strategy to take it a bit further. Take it into like really impacting all sorts of the different corners of your life that it can influence.
Absolutely. No, I mean it can absolutely be the first bracket, right, to then having a ripple effect on just how much you build that awareness, right? And that right there, right, like we've talked about the pieces of how to identify stress in the first place, and then what we do with that. The physiological side can be a great like go-to first aspect, and that already shows the progress of self-awareness. Right. And I always tell my folks, right, my clients, that self-awareness is really like key. Right. And how we get to self-awareness is curiosity. Totally. We have to be curious about what's going on for us internally, you know, and be open to, you know, what does it mean? What does it mean for me specifically, and what works, right?
That's so true. And like I think it's often actually also referred to as like metacognition, I think, and it's sort of like awareness of your awareness. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you, when you, like, I think meditation is uniquely valuable for this because it's a great way to have specific focus on your controlling your attention and like recognizing what your brain is doing. Like if you're doing a breath focused meditation,
Yes.
we're always, your mind's going to wander. And a lot of people think that, oh, I'm failing meditation when when my mind's not quiet. But really it's about recognizing that it wandered
Yes.
and just gently bringing it back. And that ability to recognize that your mind has gone somewhere else, that is the first step to being more present, to regulating yourself, and to recognizing that you need to use some of these effective coping strategies. And so like, that's a really foundational thing we all need to probably improve upon. And so, but how do we do it? Like, do we, try to force it with, going through exercise? Yeah, like I think that's great. But I also think like, we can start really simply, like just a 5-minute breathing exercise.
Yes.
Literally,
Do wonders.
we have studies on this. Like
Yeah.
even in people with migraines, just a 5-minute breathing exercise is impactful on reducing migraine severity and frequency. And it's nuts. Like we can actually start to see changes with that little of a time investment. So if you haven't started already, just start with 5 minutes. If you're worried that it might take too long, like it really can be doable. But it also can grow from there. Like I recently started doing, now daily I do 30 minutes to an hour of meditation in the morning.
Awesome.
And it's like, I just create the space for it. And sometimes my brain's like, no, I have all this work to do. Like it just like, maybe I should just get started. But in reality, your work is more efficient. You are more present when you're doing important things. I've noticed I'm just like way more grounded when I'm doing like public speaking or when I'm doing all these things, just because it's like you're way more regularly in touch with yourself. You quiet your mind intentionally before you get the ball rolling. Like if you get up, you're immediately like on Instagram or something, which is like a great way to just make your mind jump from thing to thing over and over again. And we lose that executive control of we recognize our attention is gone, but we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep going on that. It's like, maybe it's neuroscience, then the next thing is somebody jumping off a bridge into the river, and the next thing is somebody's like crying about some life event, and you're like, wow, like your brain's going a mile a minute. Exactly.
Yeah.
Single task attention is a dying skill.
Oh yeah.
And we have to do everything we can to cultivate it. And it's not just for, some obscure thing. It directly influences so much, and it's such a core foundation for stress and all these things. So, and I think that feels like a pretty good segue into maybe what is going on in our brains. Why does stress cause increased susceptibility to migraines? What is going on when stress goes a little haywire and leads to more things like exacerbation of chronic pain, to making us more susceptible to some of these things? So I think it helps to recognize first that what actually is stress. Like we've talked about the definition, but what's going on in our bodies? And so I like to think of this there's two branches of the stress response. We have the sympathetically driven, like direct nerve connection to our adrenal cortexes in these little organs on top of our kidneys. It's the first line of defense. And you can think of this when let's say somebody slams on their brakes in front of you while you're driving, and you feel that rush, that like, oh my God, the like huge tingles go through your body. That is adrenaline or epinephrine if you're in Europe. And there's some other things going on too. That's immediate. Within seconds, your body is flooded with this chemical. And that goes everywhere. It influences every bit of your tissues. But then there's also this secondary thing going on. It's called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which basically is your brain sending resources down to get your adrenal glands to produce cortisol, as well as a few other stress hormones, but cortisol is the big one. And we often think of cortisol in this like really negative light these days. We think of it as like, it's really relevant in chronic stress and in things like, PCOS, and it exacerbates, issues with our thinking and our attention control and our mood. And it can even lead to things like exacerbation of like joint pain and into like obesity, and it has its tendrils and everything. But that is a product of our modern environment. And so maybe do you want to touch a little bit on how stress is kind of a good thing, and what does cortisol do for us? And we can elaborate more on that later too. Like, what is cortisol doing? Like, why is this such a, why is this thing that's there to help us? So it's important. What is happening behind the scenes that's making us so maybe exacerbated in different areas? But maybe you can get us started, and I can touch on some other points too if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned environmental, like the modern day environment, right? And how absolutely that's a part. I mean, I can talk a lot about environmental cues and triggers and stuff like that. But internally, I mean, I think this goes back again, right, to yes, that good stress that we still need in order to have, the actual survival basics.
We still
right?
have dangerous things in our lives.
Yes, we do.
We've gotten rid of a lot of them with our modern luxuries, but we're not starving or getting attacked by a bear every day, but there's still bad things. Yeah.
It can still happen, right? And so we absolutely, still need that. We need an amount of cortisol, right, in order for us to be able to react accordingly. Yeah. Right. And, that goes back to that difference of like distress and stress, right? If it is an overabundant amount of cortisol, right, then we can feel, I use the word flooded, depending on, one, how
threatening is it?
Yes, how threatening that is. And if we have an overstimulating amount of cortisol, right, we might misjudge. Yeah. Right. Totally. What are we actually safe, or is there actual danger here? Yeah. And that is absolutely too. I mean, my brain immediately goes to like PTSD. Yeah. Right. And the hypervigilance that comes, when we hear a certain sound. Yeah. Right. When we even like smell something that takes us right back to a certain memory, and our body becomes flooded with these chemicals. Yeah. But there's a dissonance, right? There is absolutely what information we are taking in that goes through a distorted filter. Yeah. But our body reacts the same. Yeah. As when we experience that very, very dangerous thing back then. But because there's either no basis for coping strategies or recognition, of what exactly is going on. Yeah. Right. Then that's where we can misjudge, and that's where unfortunately we can see the
misalignment of our body's response with our environment. Yeah. Yes. Totally.
And that's why this is so important to talk about, right? Yeah. Of what exactly is happening internally, chemically, right? To recognize just how much of an impact it can have on not just our physical sensations and like what our body wants to do, right? But absolutely what we internally, mentally, and emotionally want to do, and how we behave because of that.
Yeah, that's such a good, I love the like experiential lens of that, because I think it's helpful to also understand like the physiological side, which I'll touch on here now. And it's like we have this mismatch of like, we need to respond, but the response is now just dysregulated, and is what's the magnitude that we need to be responding. And so the role of cortisol in our anatomy and physiology is that it's basically there to help us mobilize resources. Same with epinephrine, adrenaline as well. It helps us to increase our circulating blood sugar. It helps us to recruit other resources. It quickens our heart rate so that we can perform physical actions more urgently. Like it's making all of our blood vessels kind of dilate, and that's why you get that like tingly feelings in your hands sometimes. And so, but it also has other impacts. It influences your brain as well. It changes which areas are able to function really well, like urgently. Like we need to shift our focus from certain things to other more urgent things. So it changes a lot, and it's also playing a role in our circulating like sex hormones, like cortisol, kind of, especially when it's chronically elevated, helps to like dampen testosterone and estrogen, and that has a role to play in our health. And so we see, even like in our modern era, we're seeing like huge changes in just men's circulating testosterone, their free testosterone. We see changes in fertility, and a lot of this is coming about from this chronic low-grade stress. That's at least part of it. There's other stuff going into that, of course, too. But then, like, we can kind of travel up into our brain a little bit, and when we start to see this dysregulated stress response, where we are actually seeing, migraine is now referred to as a connectopathy, meaning that the key brain regions that are supposed to be tightly regulated in their ability to send signals and communicate, and it's a bunch of different little areas that have a specific role, maybe a few roles, but then they send a signal to another area, which sends in a signal to another area, and normally that's a nice, beautiful orchestra. But sometimes this gets a little mixed up in some people or in certain contexts, and there's some genetic predispositions to how well is our brain able to kind of produce energy or to facilitate connection between different areas. And that's actually what leads to people being more genetically susceptible to stress and to migraines, is that we have changes in key brain regions that, maybe during the migraine process, we get this electrical activity called cortical spreading depression, and it jumbles up the communication in these areas. And so when we have this happening on a regular basis, we have enlargement, and we talked about this at the beginning a little bit, but we have enlargement of this emotional processing region called the amygdala. And the amygdala is this little like almond-shaped nugget in the brain that's responsible for our like really strong emotional reactions to threats and to other things like that. And it can become, when it gets bigger, we might think like, oh, it's we're getting better emotional processing, but unfortunately that's just not how it works. It's more like we just have a huge emotional response to things that may not actually be that big of a threat. And so like in the migraine process, for example, we start to recognize like, oh shoot, like I have the prodrome coming on. I'm feeling like, or maybe I have an aura and I'm getting a visual disturbance, and suddenly we have this jacked up emotional reaction, which kickstarts the stress response and actually can be a trigger in and of itself, because we start to recognize and it kind of pushes it over into the migraine, whereas it may have just been like, oh, it's a prodrome, maybe I can react in a more productive way to regulate. But so ultimately, we have changes in these key brain regions, and the communication gets disrupted. And the same thing is happening with chronic stress. We can kind of think of it like other key brain regions are the frontal cortex, the medial prefrontal cortex being a big one, and that is responsible for a lot of our top-down regulation of pain and a lot of these things, and how those areas are able to regulate pain. And so we get this like over-amplified pain experience, and we start to actually learn pain. Our brains get better and better at being stressed or being in pain, and so we have to recognize that this is going on in our brains, and we can take back ownership by using these things that break this chronic pain cycle or break this this stress response cycle. And so using some of these more beneficial coping strategies to kind of take back ownership, but really these things come together and play a very beautiful synergistic role. When you talk about exercise helps to go through the normal cortisol, the normal stress reaction response, and it helps us to better regulate the highs and the lows. We need cyclical cortisol exposure, cyclical stress responses, because that's how we respond, adapt, and recover. And so we can think of it like for example, when we wake up in the morning, we're supposed to have a big spike in cortisol. That's great. That's how we become alert. That's how we mobilize resources to become active and get out of that sleepy state. But so some people don't actually get enough of a cortisol spike, and they're lethargic, and maybe we can actually kind of enhance the normal cyclical nature of this on a day in and day out basis by being more physically active.
Yes.
And it helps us to resolve a lot of these more problematic long duration stress reactions. And so that's one nice part of it. But exercise also helps us to produce brain derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which is like Miracle-Gro for the neurons in our brains.
Yeah, my brains are Miracle-Gro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
it's this great thing because now we're learning these new coping mechanisms, and it's enhancing our ability to integrate them into our daily lives. It's enhancing these connections we're trying to reestablish.
Yes.
It's allowing us to, to all of our other efforts become amplified. It even improves the efficacy of certain medications too. Our migraine rescue medications are big, and I know a lot of the other more like emotional regulation medications can be enhanced too. And actually, another good example of this is that SSRIs are ones that sometimes we're prescribed for depression and stuff like that, but we're actually seeing now the SNRIs can actually help with the migraine process. Whereas SSRIs don't really as much because it's similar. They're all kind of interconnected. But I think recognizing that there are other strategies that are taking a more holistic approach outside of the medication management of these things is really the way to move forward. Because imagine if you just gave somebody a medication for depression or anxiety and didn't do any processing changes. We're not building the resources to make this a lasting, integrated process. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely just one part of the puzzle. A lot of the time with medication, how I describe that as a process of of either encouraging, right, that coinciding with therapy, right, or other modalities, is because it really can't just be a one fix all, right? And the reason for that, right, is because it's like a life jacket.
Yeah.
Right? It's the thing that can keep you afloat, but you still absolutely have to do the swimming.
Absolutely.
And the swimming, right, are all these other aspects that we're talking about, right? It is the coping strategies, the discussions, right, of just identifying these different parts of you. And there's absolutely no shame in needing a floating device, right? Sometimes if we're that low, right, or that high, right, and we're on either end of the spectrum, we need a little assistance, right, to get us to a space, kind of like what the physiological side does, right? Brings us to a space of just our window of tolerance to be able to engage in the swimming, engage in the things that can enhance, right, overall well-being. And and then at that point, once you have those skills, then you can start looking at decreasing the medication, right, in different ways, because you have so much more now, right? You have so many more tools.
That's so true.
And
actually, the analogy you used there, I think is really good. And to elaborate on it, maybe it's I think a lot of people run into this thing where they may not get a lot of understanding from other people. People are like, I've been in the ocean and I just swam right back to shore. Why can't you do that? But some people are right by the coast and they're just it's a little swim. It's a little splash around, doggy paddle back to shore. Some people are deep in the ocean, and anybody deep in the ocean, you're gonna have to do a lot of swimming, and everyone's gonna get tired doing that. So when you're deep in this, sometimes having medication support is pretty critical. It's not that you don't have to do the swimming to get back to shore. It's gonna be a process, and it takes a little bit more consistency and effort, and recognizing that that's not a slight on your character or your durability or something, and just having that support to get you closer to shore so you can get out and finally get on the other side to wellness, because that's something I really think we miss as a society. We don't deliver people from unwellness to wellness, we deliver them to like stability, sort of, sometimes.
Yes.
We have a very reactionary system. And so I think it's great when we can catch people who are drifting out to sea, they're close to the shore, but it's like, whoa, hang on, like, let's swim back this way. And so instead of catching it when they're deep in the ocean, sometimes we can definitely still get back from that being deep in the ocean to wellness, to back on shore, to feeling good, basking in the sun, laying around, lounging, enjoying a beverage of your choice.
Yes, absolutely. That's where we want to be, right?
Yep. But yeah, I think it's great if we can try to proactively manage this before you get super deep, but recognizing what needs to be done when you get out there. And it's a multi-system approach is what the future of this, I believe, really is.
No, absolutely. I have so many analogies when it comes to like water and swimming and like surfing and and for some folks, right, it's not just like, okay, we went to go into the ocean and we got a little far. Sometimes it's a riptide freaking takes them all the way, right, deep over here that was out of their control in lots of different ways. Like chemically, that can be an experience. The genetic aspect. And so if we don't have, right, that floating devices or concepts of like how to swim different strokes, right? Or that you can do this kind of stroke to just rest a little bit, but you're still
it's
moving.
like a backstroke. You're just chilling, floating.
Absolutely. Like we don't have to just go freestyle all the way. So it's like, it's really taking into account all these different pieces and meeting people where they're at, right? And then also connecting them to all of these different resources. One, so they can recognize that they're not alone, but I really like what you said earlier too, as you're getting these resources and you kind of recognize you have a team, right? That are working with you. You are... So I say reclaiming, right? You said something different, but I
remember.
You're taking ownership. You're taking that ownership back, right?
Ownership.
Yes. So I say you're reclaiming, right? Your mind, your body, you know, your experience of capability and what that feels like, right? And you start to build your confidence that is building resiliency, right? And all these different things. So, you know, it's really, really important, all these different parts to build all of that.
Yeah. And I think another great thing is there are other strategies that, you know, may give you a little boost, like gives you a jet ski to get back. And, you know, that may be having the right team. You know, that could be like, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to doggy paddle your way back necessarily. You can probably, like some people, you know, but maybe you end up heading the wrong way, you're going out to sea. So sometimes having the right guidance can really be helpful.
Absolutely.
And, you know, totally separate analogy, but I think one that helps here is like the people who got swept out into the ocean, like that riptide, like you can think of it as like there's this genetic predisposition to having more migraines or to being like less capable of regulating your stress, maybe. As an example, and some people they get into a stressful situation and they just like quickly bounce back. They had the right structure, the right environment, or maybe, you know, I think it's the dandelion and the orchid analogy. Right? It's basically like some people they're the dandelion. No matter what, they're popping back up again. They're going to be good anywhere. It's going to be maybe in the crack in the sidewalk out there, or maybe they're in the nice lush grass. But some people are like orchids. They may have this predisposition where if they're in the desert, they're not going to be thriving. But we have to figure out how to get them in the right environment with the trickle of water that's just enough to get them thriving and being the beautiful, you know, blooming flower that they really can be. And I think it's just such a helpful way to paint this picture, because a genetic predisposition does not mean you are guaranteed to be in this situation. Or a rough childhood doesn't mean you're guaranteed to forever be in this cycle of awful, you know, dynamics and relationship patterns and stuff like that. And having the right thing to kind of help get you out of it and get you in the right environment, get you the water and the nutrients you need to thrive a little bit as that orchid is really doable. But it takes really careful thinking and support through that process because, you know, you're not going to uproot yourself and get over there. It sometimes takes recognizing that you need help and recognizing you need support systems and somebody to water you maybe, or you know,
and allowing that to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, like to receive.
Yes, we as humans are innately social beings.
Yes,
we are not. This whole individualistic, you know, narrative that we have going on these days does not foster wellness. It fosters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some people are going to be okay. It's fine for a lot of dandelions, but really there's way more people who are somewhere in between the dandelion and orchid spectrum, but we need that interconnection to really thrive. Almost every human out there, you know, really needs this. There's a few outliers that truly don't need, you know, a whole lot of that, but that is like so rare. You know?
And I'd even question it still.
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, it's like,
Are we just in chronic dissociation
exactly.
avoidance?
Yeah.
But absolutely.
Yeah, you're living, but you may not be like your best self. Yeah. There's probably, if you're in that situation, maybe more of a you know, trauma response or something like that, or some sort of coping mechanism to survive in an individualistic only kind of environment.
No, I mean, I also have this conversation a lot with clients. Because I will say there is absolutely a misconception, right? Or whether it's from the media, right? Or from family dynamics, right?
Yeah.
Or cultural aspects or different things that really categorizes independence as success, right? And we can get lost in the sauce of that, of just like isolation, right? But absolutely can get to that burnt and crispy that we were talking about earlier, right? If we're trying to do it all by ourselves, right? And I talk to a lot of folks that, like, you know, let's just take a way back to Neanderthals, right? And we're just, how do we survive? Right? How do we survive? Guaranteed, if you were with a group, lot more chance.
Oh yeah.
A lot more chance. Right? Because you're
one person's sleeping, one person's looking out for the threats.
And so we absolutely still have, you know, we are meant to be surrounded, right, by a team. Right? And we end up thriving, right? Today we don't have to survive, really, right? So we can absolutely thrive by having a community, having a team, recognizing that, like, individuality is fantastic. But individuality does not have to be hyper independence. It can be, I know who I am and what I need, and also receive. Right, and ask questions and be curious about what I don't know, right, and allow myself to learn and grow and challenge and all that stuff. So
true. Recognizing that in order to sometimes to show up as a community member or as a partner, as a parent or whatever, you sometimes need to do a lot of self-development. You know, to be a good parent, sometimes, you know, you have to work on the trauma that you grew up with and the stuff that led you to some maybe not so favorable coping mechanisms, and being able to recognize that you are an individual amongst many individuals who are, you know, collectively one, essentially. And that if you are not working at your best, you're not doing the best for the people you love. You're showing up in a 50% kind of capacity, and really, you know, it takes some self-work, but oftentimes it's a synergistic thing. It's not do all the work on your own and then re-enter. It's recognize that at one of my social psychology courses, like in college, actually, just really always resonates with me, and it was basically like, we in a dyad, in a relationship with another person, they provide us a social mirror. We become better people by learning about ourselves through the lens of this social interaction.
Yes.
And it's not that everyone's beliefs about you matter that much, really. Like a lot of people, most of the time we probably shouldn't care at all. But the people that we are surrounded by on a daily basis, the people that we really love and value their opinions, they can be very helpful to learn and grow from about ourselves and as support systems too. Now, it's not just the mirror effect, but I think being selective about what sort of influences you have in your life is major, and I always love that for personal musings. But I guess that's for another talk maybe. But it's it is good to recognize that we need other people. We need support. We need these structural systems in place to become our best versions of ourselves and to help other people become the best versions of themselves too. I love the interplay. Like it's kind of like, if you have a close network of people who are constantly growing, you're learning from them, they're learning from you, and it's just like better and better. But sometimes it can go the other way. If you're surrounded by people who are dragging you down, you can just get worse and worse and worse. And being mindful about the social influences and how it can be used or abused can be, so impactful. But you first can self-regulate. So recognizing when you get dysregulated, you may not show up in the best way to be, a part of a community, but you can use these strategies to quickly break through. And I know that has transformed my life, just regularly checking in and recognizing that I have the choice to show up and be more well-regulated.
Yes.
It's huge with my clients, with my family, with my partner. It is massive because we're prone to just surviving, but we can choose to thrive.
Absolutely. We can absolutely choose to thrive if we just elicit that curiosity.
Yeah, that's right. We have a choice. You get to decide. I'm not going to keep doing those things I've been doing. Yeah.
I want something different.
Exactly.
Right. And not just for me, right? But for how that makes me interact with the people that I love, right? And also the things that I love to do, right?
Yeah.
How can I really enjoy those things by recognizing what I need?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or getting curious and just the best.
Yeah, and actually that's probably such a good thing for us to round out on, is that it's not just these self-regulation things. It's also about setting boundaries for yourself. Stress management, meditation is so good for stress management, but recognizing that you have the opportunity to define a lot of things in your life. You really do have so much agency if you really cultivate it. Recognizing that you can say no to things when it's important to, but also recognizing that some stress is important and we need to strike this balance. And I think just being really in tune with yourself, it can start with that self-regulation, but then we're like, okay, with that, I recognize no, saying yes to that would just be too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will this promote, right, what I'm looking to go towards, right? Or will it cause more stress? Right?
Yeah.
And it's really, in order to answer that question, you really have to tune in, right, to gain clarity of the things that are important to you and the things that you need in order to do those important things, right? Or to be present, right, in the way that you want to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All of these pieces matter into getting curious about it and then connecting the dots.
Yes, so true. Yeah, having compassion for yourself is
big one.
Yeah. Give yourself some grace.
Grace.
You don't have to be perfect. Just recognize you can do things a little differently.
Absolutely, compassion is huge.
Yeah,
it's right next to curiosity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe to round out, what is something that you would like? What's a message that you would like to convey about either the human experience, your life as a therapist or as just a person? What's the message you wanna send out there?
Um, I'm gonna go off of, I guess, what we kind of ended on, right? The curiosity and the compassion, right, that it takes to move through life openly.
Yeah.
Right. The way that you want to. For me, I guess this is more on the personal aspect, right? But like becoming a therapist, it's not just necessarily that there's rarely a therapist that hasn't had some sort of experience, right?
Personally with it.
Yes, that just drives that passion to help others with it, right? Too, and it's absolutely an example. What I preach to people, I do myself the best that I can, right?
So
You have to. You should.
Right? Yeah.
Because going along with that concept of like, you can't pour into others, right? If you're empty,
yes.
Right? And so,
That's
right. Absolutely. That I have engaged in all of these things that we've talked about, right? As a maintained practice and commitment to myself in order to, be the kind of therapist that I want to be, right? To have the capacity to hold space for others, because I hold space for myself, right? In different ways.
Yes.
And getting curious and having compassion. But also not just being a therapist, right? To also being a mom, right? That nugget is everything to me.
Absolutely.
So in order to be the mom that I want to be, right, I have to absolutely care for myself, allow for myself to be cared for too, and receive and do all these different things to pass that down. Right. Versus the cycles that maybe we grew up with, right? That we've had to learn. Right. And not on our own, right? Because I didn't learn all this stuff on my own.
That's right. Yeah, you weren't just sitting there meditating and it all came to you.
No, absolutely not. But to really engage in the ways that we want to, whether it's being a parent, right, or the partner that you want to be, right, or the daughter or the sister, the brother, etc. All these different things. Friend, these how you take care of yourself in these kinds of ways is how it just has a ripple effect on absolutely everything else.
So true.
So get curious.
Get curious. Yes, I love it. That's so good. And I think that's such a good way to end it, because it's just like, if you're out there listening, watching, you may be feeling like you're looking up on a mountain to get to that point. Like it's like, oh, I have to do all this work to get there. But it really is just a practice. You get to just, if you start to get traction. You start to feel it. You may slip back a little bit, but you've started, and it's no longer, a mountain. You're just putting one foot in front of the other of doing these practices and recognizing and listening and, recognizing when something maybe needed done a little differently, but it's such a good way to end it. So, all right. So how can people find you if they want to work with you or look at your content or?
Yes, of course. Like if folks want to just look at my content and because I post a lot of like little snippets right here and there of some of these examples, right, of coping strategies that you can do. But also how movement is beneficial, right, to our lives. Move Talk Zen, at Move Talk Zen, Instagram, it's move.talk.zen. Otherwise, if you're looking for a therapist, right, who has a modern approach, something different, right, who moves with you, has to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. Not just Charlotte, right? I can absolutely do anywhere in North Carolina based on my license, but www.movetalkzen.com.
Okay.
Right? Make an inquiry
Great.
through there.
Yeah.
Email Ashley@movetalkzen.com.
Yeah. So you do some telehealth. That's what it
Oh,
sounds like.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
absolutely.
good to know. Hit her up.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Wow.
I appreciate your very insightful words and sharing the time with me. So
Yes.
it's been great.
Thank you for having this conversation with me and continuing the collaboration of just how important it is to connect in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.